Good evening. I'd like to call the Board of Trustees to order on Tuesday, June 18th at approximately 6:05 PM. In order for everyone to hear our enlightened discussion, would you please turn off or silence any cell phones or other noise makers that you may have? Would you please join me in reciting the Pledge of Allegiance?
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Roll call, please.
Toledo?
Here.
Baker?
Here.
Berto?
Here.
Bell?
Here.
Duffy?
Here.
Kadanko?
Here.
Zashki?
Here. Approval of the agenda.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Approval of the minutes as published.
Move that we approve the minutes as published.
Can we come back to that?
Yes,
till my
we'll come back to
computer
the
comes
minutes.
up?
Okay. Go to comments and correspondence. Does anybody in the audience care to make a comment about a non-agenda item? But let me also state that there are a couple of items on the agenda tonight that public hearings were heard on. We cannot accept any comments on those items. Anybody? Once, twice? Correspondence.
I can't get at my packet because my computer is wrapped up as well. But there is one
There was just one.
piece of correspondence in there.
The Friends of Peninsula State Park?
Yeah.
Does anybody else have any other correspondence they want to add? All right. Denise will let us know when we come back for minutes.
I'm back up.
Okay.
Got the packet open?
Yeah.
Okay, let's go back to minutes.
So I have a motion by Zashki.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay.
Okay, on page 4, line 23, just a typo. Berta reviewed for the trustees that the,
Yep.
not two that's.
Do you like to use those two that's though every now and then? That.
It's got a better ring to it.
And on page 5, line 31, facilities manager Lundquist spoke with Mike Carr, not shared that. He just spoke.
Okay.
That was all.
That's it. Anybody else? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Item number 1, introduction of Bo Burnoff, the new village administrator. Bo, would you please make yourself known? Sure. So everyone, this is Bo Burnoff, our
Yes, I think I've said hi to almost everyone. If not, I'll say hi to you in a bit. Bo Bernhoft and to the residents out there, new village administrator. I just want to thank everyone, the elected officials and the staff, and really give some appreciation to the staff and elected officials as well, for keeping the ship afloat for the last 2 or 3 years that there's been a little bit of a lack for an administrator. So I'm excited to be a part of this team, and I look forward to working with all of you. So thank you.
Thank you. Item number 2, discussion regarding the recommendation from Utilities, Water Sewer Collection and Storm Sewer Committee that the Village Board approve preliminary resolution 404-061819, which authorizes the scheduling of a public hearing in preparation of an engineering report related to the request to extend sewer and water main on Little Sister Road, which was received from persons who own property in that area. Consider a motion for action if appropriate.
Okay, there's information regarding a request for a sewer and water extension on Little Sister Road included in the packets. Is Lee here this evening?
I'm
Okay.
hiding back here.
Lee will explain to you just
Sure.
what that procedure is. Lee is the village engineer.
Yeah, okay. Come up here or
Yes,
here?
please.
Okay, sure.
Microphone.
Here's a real good place right there. Get my good side, right? So, with projects, extending sanitary sewer, water, roads,
that would affect quite a number of properties. The typical process to go through is an assessment process to charge back the cost of it. And the first step in an assessment process is the adoption by the village board of the preliminary resolution. It's based on state statute 6607-03. And just looking back, it's been a while since project has been done, gone through the assessment process. I think the last one, probably Denise was here, would have been Sunnyside and Forest Lane, involved the Crow's Nest and some of the properties on Forest Lane at that time. So it's been a while again since we did that. We did a small extension on Chalet Lane. There were only a few property owners at that time, and we had them, they were all in favor, so at that time we had them sign waivers of the public hearing notice. That's another methodology to do it, but with here, you have about a dozen property owners on this project. And my understanding, there's an inquiry by a couple of them that wanted sewer and water, so Mike Skill and myself talked about it and said, there's a finite amount of properties that are looking at, needing sewer and water that don't have it in this area. Rather than just do a small project, do we want to see if there's more interest out there? And I believe in April, there were letters that were sent out just to gauge interest of the properties, and I believe it was about maybe 50-50, maybe a little bit more than that, of ones that were in favor of at least looking at what costs are proceeding. So that's where we are then today. We put together then this preliminary resolution, and that again is the first step in the process. And the second step then is this preliminary resolution would authorize us to put together plans and costs to service the properties. And then it would also, with that, we'd have a schedule of assessments per property. And the third thing it does then is to authorize the village board to conduct a public hearing. Typically, the public hearing would be at a village board meeting, probably the next village board meeting you would have. The public hearing notice needs to be published in the paper once and then also sent out to all the property owners affected at least 10 days prior to the public hearing, along with any supporting documentation. So we would assist the village with that as we have in the past. So, and then at that public hearing is when the discussion typically would take place, is what property owners are in favor, which ones aren't. Typically, with this many property owners, you rarely ever get 100% of everyone that's in favor of it. So you as a village board then have to decide, is it in the best interest of the area, of the community, to either proceed with the project or not proceed with the project. The other thing that can happen, and I have had it, is maybe you only have half the people that are interested, and there's a way to maybe make a smaller project or alter the project. That can be done as well. Within those times, we'd look at, because we'd have to go back and recost it out, is to probably stay the public hearing to another meeting, relook at the numbers, and then represent. So in a nutshell, that's the typical process. And then after that public hearing, again, like I said, the board can make the decision to either proceed or just say, fine, it doesn't make sense to proceed at this time.
So, just to reiterate, the preliminary resolution that's in our packet tonight would be to authorize moving forward to a public hearing.
Correct.
So that all the property owners involved could have their say.
Correct.
And we would then get that information and that input, and then from there, make a decision one way or another to move to the next step.
Yes.
Or not.
Yes. And it's all based on how the state statutes are established for assessment process.
Okay. Questions? Somebody care to make a motion?
I so move.
Second?
Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried? Thank you,
You
Lee.
might need me for the next one.
Next one, right?
too.
Okay.
So
I
won't
I
need-
do have one
Sure.
question,
Sure.
Lee. one particular property owner, 7 to 10 years ago, he stated that he just put in a new system that cost, tens of thousands of dollars or whatever. At that public hearing, will you be coming armed with information about different ways that we could address that particular issue? Seeing that it's a relatively new system?
Yeah, there's a state statute, part of the state statutes that cover townships, that if a sanitary district runs sewer to a property that has a private system, that private system, again, premise that it's still in operating condition, proper operating condition, and they have the original bill, it's prorated on a 10-year life cycle. So if it was 7 years old, 30%, so 70% would already be considered used, but 30% of those costs could be reimbursed or the assessment deducted that amount.
Okay, so there's conversations
yes.
that we could have
Right, yeah.
to
And I-
address that.
And I just saw the Village of Howard, which is just west of Green Bay, they're running sewer and water to some areas that have developed homes. They're doing a 5-year cycle for homes that had private systems. And typically it only handles or that covers septic systems. The private wells can, if they again meet the village's ordinances for private wells, could be potentially left in place for irrigation, not for the drinking part, and can't be interconnected, but those typically are not reimbursed for, but the private septic systems, some communities do in fact reimburse whatever the life.
As long
is
as there's
like.
options
Yes,
then
right. Yep.
to deal with that.
Yes.
Do you anticipate that you can have the reports and things done, that we could have the public hearing at the next board meeting?
Yes, yeah, the
Okay.
next board meeting, I believe is, I think it's the 16th of July? Is
I
that-
believe so, yeah.
Yeah, and I would be able to come up and we would have it, so that they could be sent out to all the property owners prior to the 10 days.
Okay.
prior
So if
to-
anyone is here and wants to attend the public hearing, they'd want to plan on coming at the 16th, on the 16th. Okay.
That's already on my calendar.
Okay.
Okay,
Dave, I have a request.
sure.
There's too many lights on and I'm feeling a migraine coming
Okay.
on. Does the board care if I flip one of them off?
Have at it.
Thank you. I
I
just
don't
don't know
wanna be
which one
flipped
it's
off.
going to be. Thank you.
Okay. Better?
Better.
Item number 3, discussion regarding the recommendation from Utilities, Water, Sewer Collection, and Storm Sewer Committee that the village board approve the plans for a sewer and water extension which will service 4 single-family homes to be constructed on Mariners Point condominium property, on the condition that before any of the required work commences, those plans must be approved by state officials, and the recommendation from the Utilities, Water, Sewer Collection, and Storm Sewer Committee that the village board approve the document that has been included in the meeting package, which is entitled Village of Sister Bay Sanitary Sewer and Water Main Easement, and authorize the village clerk to see that is recorded in the Office of Register of Deeds for Door County in as timely a fashion as possible. Consider a motion for action if appropriate.
Okay, well, this matter was originally referred to the Plan Commission. And when it went to the Plan Commission, Mike Skill, who's our utility director, had voiced concerns about the anticipated sewer and water plan that was going to be initiated. So Mike contacted Lee, and they came to the conclusion that a different utility system and sewer and water plan will be required. Lee did draft that plan, or the engineers from Robert E. Lee did. He'll explain any questions you have about it. It's my understanding that we also will need an easement if you approve the new plan, and you guys would have to authorize that.
So again, Mike and I spoke about this, we looked at what was the existing infrastructure, and with the proposed 4 homes, it just made sense, in the configuration, to run a public, about 200 feet of sewers and water in, to service the 4 homes. it's gonna be relatively shallow. The homes are not gonna have basements according to Vans Lumber, who's doing the buildings. And it would be within a 30-foot easement then that would be dedicated to the village. So it'd be something similar, you know, not as large in scope, but just what happened with the apartment complex, that the sewer and water was run in there and by the private individual, and then once it's completed, the sewer and water mains are turned over to the village for long-term maintenance, and an easement is granted. The plans have been submitted to the state DNR, both water and sewer. The approvals have been run. I just told the gentleman, the developer here, that about a month before we get approvals back from the state is typical right now.
Okay. Questions?
Does that easement run under any paved surface? No?
It's
Um,
likely that it will.
I believe it will, under some, yes. Yes.
Okay.
But it's my understanding that any time that that happens, the property owner, if they grant it, understands that a pipe would break. It's their responsibility
Right,
to
yeah.
repair the driveway.
Right, yeah.
Any other questions? Can you use a motion?
I'll make that motion.
Second?
Okay. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Thank you, Lee.
Thank you.
Item number 4, discussion regarding the discussion regarding the recommendation of the Plan Commission on ordinance number 265, which amends 66.0313C1 of zoning code in such fashion that it states that assembly halls are no longer allowed as a conditional use in the R3 district. Be approved as presented. Consider a motion for action if appropriate.
Want to take that one since that was your recommendation?
Well, back when we made it a conditional use possibility for, in the R3 zone to do the wedding barns, there was a great deal of discussion if we were talking about keeping it in the future that covered all of R3, et cetera. So I spoke with Randy, because it seemed to me that allowing it in all of R3 and keeping it available in all of R3 was not necessarily typically conducive to R3 long-term. So Randy agreed that, given that particular situation, it was okay. But if we, as a village, don't want to allow that type of conditional use in all R3s, that we should remove it. So,
Good night.
Good night, thank you.
can I call you tomorrow about? Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, Devil's. So I went to the Plan Commission 2 months ago and asked the Plan Commission to review and take a look at it as a result of that conversation. And rethink if we want R3 to have that conditional use, particular conditional use, still apply R3 wide. So as a result of that, the Plan Commission had their discussion and came up with this recommendation. Did I state that correctly?
Mhm.
Okay. So that's why it is what it is.
So moved.
Second.
Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Item number 5, discussion regarding the recommendation from Utilities Committee and the Plan Commission that the village's development agreement template be amended in such fashion that there is a provision added which states that Utilities Director must approve any grease traps which are installed for restaurants or facilities requiring that type of equipment. Consider a motion for action if appropriate.
So moved.
Second?
Discussion?
This would essentially mean that he would, or the director would examine any existing ones as well, right? To make sure that they're sufficient, or are we just saying simply from this point forward?
This is for
any-
development agreements. This will
So-
only amend the development agreement
Right.
template.
From this point forward for development agreements. Yes, that is in
So,
there.
is it safe to say that everything that they would be looking at in future developments is already part of the standard procedure of reviewing ones that are in operation? Or is it possible that, he would make sure that a new development has the right kind, but an older establishment still has the wrong kind? Or-
There has been some issues, and you can jump in anytime.
Well, it's
There-
it's a relatively new ordinance that we have, and so those that didn't have grease traps now do. And there's been discussions and workings with a very small amount of people that potentially have troublesome sized grease traps, and that's
Right.
being regularly reviewed. If they would continue to be a problem, further discussions and any potential action will take forward.
And I think the feeling was that in some cases, they may not have been appropriately sized, or they were undersized, not because of anybody's particular fault. It was,
Right.
and so what we're doing is allowing the utilities director to say yea or nay on the size, based on what they know operating the plant. We have a motion and a second, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Thank you. Item number 6, review of requests from local businesses for granting of various liquor licenses, soda and tobacco, as well as requests for operators license. Consider motions for action if appropriate.
Recuse.
I will recuse myself. How about,
Can you,
what?
remember last year, we kind of did them,
Yeah.
can you
Yeah.
just do them by the page?
Yep.
Get up there fast.
Your turn. Chad will do it.
I will also recuse myself.
Oh, he's gonna recuse himself, he has a business.
Do you have a
Did you
quorum?
appoint someone, Dave?
We have a quorum?
Yeah.
2, 3,
Yeah,
4.
you do.
How about Janelle?
Okay. All right, all the liquor license information is included in the packets. If you go to page 49, those are the Class A, Class B, and Class C wine and Class B beer licenses. Does someone want to make a motion to approve all the licenses on page 49?
So moved.
Second.
Second, okay. Motion made and seconded. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, motion carries. Then if you could go to page 51, those are all the 2019 operator applications. Would someone care to make a motion to accept all of them or approve all of them? It's
So
page
moved.
51 and 52.
Second.
Okay, a motion was made and seconded to approve all the operator light applications. All in favor, say aye, please.
Aye.
Aye.
Motion carried. Then we go to page 53. That's all the 2019 soda applications for the village. Does anyone care to make a motion to approve them?
So moved.
I'll second that.
Motion was made and seconded to approve the soda applications for 2019. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. Okay, now we go to page 54. Would anyone care to make a motion to approve all the tobacco applications for 2019?
So moved.
I'll second.
Motion made and seconded to approve all the tobacco applications for 2019. All in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carried. I think that's it.
Thank you, Janelle. Item 7, discussion regarding the recommendation from Marina Committee that the estimate from Desdor Marine for emergency repairs to the brick wall at the marina in the amount of $35,200 be accepted. Consider a motion for action if appropriate.
Okay, well, as you know, the water levels are very, very high this year. And the brick wall is in pretty bad condition, as you can see from the pictures that have been included in the packet. The Marina Committee has recommended that Mike Carr's estimate be accepted and that the work be done as soon as possible on the riprap for $35,200.
Do we know when he's going to be able to start, by chance?
Hopefully, any day, right? Right.
Next week.
Okay. Motion?
So moved.
Second.
Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Item number 8, discussion regarding a recommendation from the Marina Committee that the estimate from Hawkers Concrete, Inc. for repairs to A-Dock in the amount of $49,896 plus $6,000 for an emergency patch job on that dock be accepted. Consider a motion for action if appropriate.
Okay, as you're probably aware, there was going to be a resurfacing project on a dock. And when that work commenced, it became obvious that the dock was in much worse condition than anybody anticipated. There's pictures that were included in the packets in a report from Amy, the marina manager. The Marina Committee has recommended that the estimate from Hawker's Concrete for repairs to ADOC in the amount of $49,896 plus $6,000 for an emergency patch job be accepted, and that you authorize Amy to see that all those repairs are made ASAP.
That is so bad.
I'll make that motion.
I'll second it.
The picture on 120, is that the emergency patch?
Well, no.
No.
I mean, in a manner of speaking, yes. So the current contractor started his patchwork. The problem is, there's much more damage under the surface. He went out there and started scoring it up so
Yeah.
that the epoxy would hold, and more just kept coming up, you know? So rather than having little issues to patch, there are significant large ones and much deeper in parts. So he started, and he's got about $8,000 worth of material and time into what you see, which is maybe a sixth of the entire thing. So it would have been much more expensive to continue on this path, and what we would have is a bunch of
Patched
patchwork
up.
over whatever. What Hawkers is gonna do is come in and take 4 inches off and create a new reinforced slab. So it's just definitely a much, even the contractor agreed that that's a better idea, so.
So whenever anything breaks at the marina, we have to immediately pay for it, and is there any thought of this ahead of time? Is there going to be
Oh,
planning? or-
absolutely, sure. So, actually, if we back up about 5 years, when we looked at long-term planning, we had estimated about $400,000 to $500,000. That was a ballpark estimate, thinking that we were gonna have to do more significant work. Last year, if you remember, we had Hawkers come out, and he took about, I think, between 30 and 50 test holes. So the slab that's on ADOC is a 14-inch thick continuous slab. And the sidewalls are not supported by the top. Sometimes they are, ours are not. So that he said, and so they did these test borings, and there's very little void underneath the top 14 inches. So he said, that's really good. He said, your side piling is good, your top is maybe not the exact top, but the main slab is in good shape. You just have to resurface the slab, and then you're good. You know, you don't have voids, you don't have structural issues. And we were expecting to have some based upon what we thought was going on, and after 50 years in the water. So fast forward 4 years, this patchwork was gonna be about 60. We'll probably wind up spending about 100, but that's still significantly less than we thought 4 or 5 years ago. In conjunction with that, as long as we're talking about ADOC, we also figured to spend between $500,000 and $800,000 for all new finger piers on A. We regularly have to have them lowered and raised and this and that, and when we had Mike Carr and another engineer out, he said, the last thing you'd want to do is replace these with floating piers. These are sound structurally. Yeah, you might have to do some raising and lowering. It's $2,000 or $3,000 a piece. But the floating docks, he said, their floating docks are 20, 25 years, and you'll be, if not replacing them, doing significant replacing of brackets and under parts. And he said this is a much better system. So even though it's a little more on this project, it's less than where we thought we were gonna be, significantly.
In addition to that, as far as from a financial standpoint, the marina has been able to put away funds towards major capital improvements over the last several years. They have $275,000 in their capital reserve account, so they can use that to cover these repairs.
So this isn't, okay.
Yeah, I would say
Right.
this is definitely
No-
capital. I mean, you're.
No loans,
Self-funded.
Yep, that's what you wanted, right?
answer you wanted.
Right, yeah.
That's the answer I wanted.
No, nothing on the taxpayers at all, no
Yep.
rate increases for the SWIFT
Say
holders.
that's a laddie too.
Right.
So this is just happening a little sooner, but it's not unexpected.
Correct. expected repair and upkeep to infrastructure.
Where are we at with the resurfacing? Are we able to get out of that contract? Have we learned?
Not really. What happens is, if you recall at the meeting, we started talking about textures, color, this and that. Once you get into doing that, now you're buying that material, so it's that color and that structure. So we now, in our possession, is that material. So what he's asking about is originally we were just gonna put epoxy on the top. Now that we're doing a 4-inch slab, you don't necessarily have to do the epoxy. You've got a brand new, basically, driveway, sidewalk, whatever you wanna call it. They all do agree that if you do put the epoxy, that's even better. It's gonna protect the concrete and give you more life. If we didn't have to, there's a savings. However, we've now paid for the material. So we can either find a way to, resell the material and save the installation, or we'll bear the ballpark $20,000 in installation costs to ultimately use the epoxy. But we can decide that at some future point.
And there's only this one option you got from My Car because it's not practical to get more, or it just would never make the time for it?
No, actually, so we have 2 other bids that are due in any day. What I would recommend, if you want to alter this, is to say that the board is in agreement that we want the work to be done. We would not have it exceed this amount. If we get a contractor bid in that Amy or the Marina Committee feels is better or cheaper, we'll absolutely use that. For the sake of getting to this board, and Mike Carr is who brought this up. He's been going around to other places, and you'll see in other places. Hubbard's Creek, they've got on top of the dock. Ephraim's got them on top of the dock. This really should get done. We didn't want to put a temporary on top of the dock. We're redoing a dock, so it would defeat the purpose. This is a permanent 40-year, and if you look in the pictures, what happened along A, they figure is that they settled into the bay. So they really need to be put back to where they are. And the problem now is the water where it is, even in smaller waves, is going right over a dock. And the biggest problem is our largest vessel that's in there is sitting a beam, and he's not bow to it, he's a beam to it. So if he starts taking large water intake and lines were to break, he's gonna create not only damage to his boat, but everything behind it as it weighs a couple 100,000 pounds. So he's very nervous. I've received several calls. I said, we're working on it as fast as we can. My car's saying, you need to do something. He's the marine engineer with 4 years of experience. So we're trying the best we can.
Beyond the boat, it's the preservation of the current dock that's there too.
Right.
Without this protection, that dock won't be protected.
Right. Oh, and worth mentioning, so last year, sorry, this is longer than probably anybody wants, but our insurance for the marina, I think, about quadrupled, from about 10,000 to 55,000.
Yeah.
Ballpark, don't, hold me to it. And the large part of that, 30,000 or so, is for a dock. Well, we made the decision that, okay, what is it? Rocks and concrete, that they just told us the concrete's, a slab, it needs to be resurfaced, but it's good. So we said, $30,000 for 1 year to protect, forget it. Well, now the water's up, now the engineer's telling us you need to reinforce that so that you don't do damage to it. And we don't have insurance if there was damage to it. So, it's a really good idea for us to do these rocks.
I think we should just approve the one bid as it came in to get it done expeditiously.
Well, there's two, and I
mean,
thought you were
this
asking about the
particular-
concrete, the hockers, and so
Yeah.
we have 2 others coming in. The rocks, I agree, I think we should, as soon as Mike can possibly get there, those should get put in, particularly on A, just that first 100 feet is where it's in the worst shape, that you've got piling and the actual break wall is susceptible to direct force of the waves, that's the problem.
Okay, so should the motion be to approve the recommendation of the Marine Committee for the concrete for repairs to ADOC not exceed the 49,896, or should it include the 6,000?
It should include the 6.
Okay, so that would be in the amount of 55,896.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
Subject to Marina Committee selecting vendor of their choice.
Or if we can defer to Amy that we don't have to have another marina meeting, but yeah, we will confer, and if we think there's a clear, better option, we'll absolutely take that. We don't, no offense to Hawkers, we like them, we hope it goes that way, but if we're gonna go through the bid process, seek other bids, and if we get something better, we can do that.
How long ago did you seek those other bids?
10 days ago or so, I think. They just came in this week, and they're working on them. We thought we might have them today. We don't have them yet, but they're supposed to be coming in before the end of the week.
Okay.
So you guys, the motion
Yeah,
is
you
then
kinda
to
got it.
authorize Amy to go ahead with it?
Yeah. Is there a second?
I had Baker motion and Donko second.
Okay, got it. Got the numbers that we just, okay. Any other discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Item number 9, discussion regarding a request from the Door County Fire Chiefs Association that the village board go on record as supporting the concept of having EMS services in Door County remain a public entity by passing and adopting resolution number 405-061819. Consider a motion for action if appropriate. I will recuse myself from this since I am the chair of the committee at the county level that is handling this particular issue. So there is, I would note, there is the letter from the county administrator is in here that clearly delineates the county's position.
Right, but before or after the chief speaks, should you not, I think you've enlightened us a little bit and touched on this in your county reports, but would it be appropriate, or do you just want to take the letter and have no input on why all this is happening?
At this point in time, I think you should just take the letter,
Okay,
and that clearly states
Okay.
what, I believe why it's happening.
okay.
And I would
and-
have no problem if you want to stay and participate. I think that would be healthy and good. I know where she's going.
Right,
But I'll defer to you.
right.
That would probably not be advisable,
Right.
Randy,
Since
right?
this is a very active issue at the
Yep.
moment at the
Yep.
county level, I would prefer to recuse myself,
Yeah.
let the board do whatever they choose to do, and
Go from there.
go from there.
And to level the playing field, I just, again, for the record, I'm an employee of the county in the service that is being discussed. So, again, it's all intertwined, unfortunately. So, my name is Chris Hecht, I'm obviously your fire chief, but tonight I'm before you speaking as the president of the Door County Fire Chiefs Association. So we're an association, a not-for-profit, of all of the chiefs and the assistant chiefs in the county. We've been in place for about 15 years roughly. We do a lot of things cooperatively, we write grants, we do fund drives for scholarships, and we get involved in issues like this and politically in the state and county and things like that regionally. So I'm here to talk a little bit about the resolution that's in front of you. I know you've talked about this, and the chair has been very good about keeping you apprised. I'll give you the position of the Door County Fire Chiefs. I'll answer your questions as best I can, and I'll give you a little history if I can. If I get too long-winded, cut me off. I'm fine with that too. The issue or the discussion of the county privatizing EMS is not a new discussion. I've worked for the county now for about 26 years, roughly, 27 years. And that conversation, that topic, it comes up probably every year or two. Sometimes as part of negotiations with their unions, sometimes just as people look, and the county looks at their costs and where they can cut costs and save costs. I think there are a little bit of misunderstanding as to some of what the fire chiefs believe. We believe the county absolutely has a right to explore everything they do and see what their costs are. We believe, and we believe we're right, and we've had it looked at by lawyers and have a letter on file with the state. The county absolutely has a right. They have no obligation to provide EMS. If they want to step away, they can step away. The obligation for fire and EMS resides with you at the local level, period. You must either provide it or contract or have somebody else provide it for you. In this case, the county is providing it for you. But that obligation is with you. The county absolutely has a right to not do it. They do not have a right to give it away. And that's where the fire chiefs decided to get involved. When the county looked to potentially privatize EMS, the fire chiefs went out and talked to several consultants who have worked both on the municipal side and on the private side, and did some research and found that in many cases, privatization of EMS is not a positive thing, both for the customer and for the community. When we found that and started to find that research, that's when we decided to get involved. And really the discussion started to open up multiple venues and multiple tracks. And as we started to delve into the money side of it and what each of the communities was paying into the county for EMS, several of the departments started to do the math and started to figure out that there would be potentially some benefit to the county not providing it and to bringing it back in-house at a local level. And I'm not speaking out of turn. The city of Sturgeon Bay in their annual report put in their annual report in a proposal to add fire-based EMS into the city of Sturgeon Bay for their district, because they know the money they put in plus the money that they generate through revenue will almost pay for the staffing that he needs. They are no different than we are. They have a very hard time getting enough volunteers and keeping enough volunteers. And he knows that he is in dire straits in staffing. And this is potentially a way for them to pay for their staffing. I will tell you, we're not, and this is something we talk about at the fire board, we've talked about it a lot in the last year because we have seen a dramatic shift. For the first time, the housing issue that the businesses are facing is affecting us. We've lost 4 people since the first of the year, predominantly due to the cost of housing and their inability to find housing. If that trend, that's the first time that it's affected us on what I would call the local service level. If that trend continues, I don't know if it's 1 year, 2 years, 10 years, or 20 years, eventually we are going to wind up having to have the discussion about full-time staffing in this department. We are the second busiest department in the county. Last year we ran over 550 calls, we're running them with volunteers. It would not be prudent to say we're going to have full-time staff on this side of the building and they're going to have full-time staff on that side of the building. It just doesn't work, right? The current method of delivering service in Door County will not survive that. And as the fire chiefs, that's our job then, because again, the law requires it to be provided fire and EMS at the local level. So that's where we started to get involved and really start to map out or start really thinking about some of these things. We don't have a clear pathway yet. We don't think that this is something that's going to happen in a day or two or a year or two probably, but we are discussing a multitude of different ideas, including the county maintaining EMS, including fire EMS district, an EMS district, 3 EMS districts, or 10 there's 10 fire departments, 10 providers. Obviously that doesn't make a lot of financial sense to say we're going to do this across 10 departments. The resolution before you tonight actually was born out of a resolution that the town of Jacksonport voters demanded that the town put together the night of their annual meeting. As this was discussed, the electorate that was there demanded that the town pass that night a resolution supporting that EMS remain in whatever form it takes, but that it would remain publicly controlled, in the public arena, I guess is how you would say it. So the fire chiefs went to work on a cleaner resolution because the one out of Jacksonport was thrown together kind of last minute, and that is the resolution you see before you. I will tell you that it will go before all 19 communities in Door County. It has been passed by the city of Sturgeon Bay, the town of Sturgeon Bay, the town of Bailey's Harbor, the village of Ephraim, and the town of Liberty Grove. As of a couple weeks ago. Most of the rest of the communities were going to see it in June and receive some type of a presentation from their fire chiefs or from me. And I don't know where the rest of them are at this point. That's a whole lot of information in a very brief time. I'd be happy to answer questions if you have any.
What's wrong with an RFQ?
Nothing. And I
So-
started out with that. I said
Right.
the county absolutely has the right to go out and look.
But your association is asking us to kind of preempt
Yep.
them just getting the information and investigating to see if there is even anybody out there that would be qualified to do it. and to have a conversation with them.
That's true.
I always think more information is better. I don't disagree with necessarily the other communities that have signed off, but I feel putting,
I understand what you're saying, we're putting the cart before the
Yeah.
horse. Why are we trying to block something that hasn't come in yet?
Yeah.
I understand your concerns, absolutely. And again, like I said, the county absolutely has the right to explore this. But,
and because it comes down to us, in the end, as a municipality, to provide those services, I guess I look forward to information to, say, is there something better, or what we have is absolutely perfect and we love it?
I think, I'm gonna interrupt you, and I'm sorry for doing it.
That's
But
okay.
that's, I think, something else that came out of the administrator's letter about how the fire chiefs don't want change. And that couldn't be farther from the truth. The fire
Oh, I think
departments-
you're working on things all the time.
Yeah, and we very much, what this has created was, and will continue to create, is an incredible amount of conversation at the local level between the fire departments and the communities they protect, and the people that live within those communities, and people very much want change. And it isn't about, they don't want to pay more taxes, they want a better service. And they don't want to have to wait 15 minutes for an ambulance, and they don't want to sit at the hospital for 2 hours while they wait for an interfacility transport. They want change, very much so. Change will come at a cost, whether
Right.
it's from the county or from whoever,
Sure,
even
whoever.
local, or private. And when you talk to the privates, they will tell you, we're not going to do it any cheaper. It may be cheaper to the taxpayer, but somebody's going to pay, right? Are you going to pay? Or, it's all about,
Did this
Dave's
resolution
not-
come up because you think this is a sufficiently bad idea that it's worth going on record ahead of time?
yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
When we did the research and did the work and talked to people and talked to people who have dealt with, today Martha Bellrine asked me in the back, she said, do you think this will happen? I said, I don't know. She said, I came from that where we used to live in Milwaukee, and it was horrible. I said, well, say something, right? She left, unfortunately, but.
It seems like there are some things that can't be made into, a business. This
Right.
isn't something that
And
should be profit driven.
Right, and if you read, something that I've included in the annual report from the fire department for a couple of years is the fire and EMS should be treated not as a business, but as critical infrastructure, right? And I've included that in your packets, I don't know, for 2 or 3 years, because it's really valuable reading. And it depends on how you think these things should work, right?
Denise, this isn't binding, just so you know. You
No.
can still vote for it, you can support it, you can vote against it. It's not gonna stop anything.
I understand that, but I'm a principal girl, I always have been, and I think that to have a preemptive strike when we don't know all the information, and your association has done their homework, and they have come up with an opinion on, why
hear
this
you,
doesn't
and
work or whatever.
I hear what
I just
you're saying.
find it difficult to strike something down before the RFQs. There might be nobody that applies. There could be 3 great groups, and in the end, after there's information, we could still say, that is so not the way that we want to go. I just think it's like everything that we do at every committee meeting, every single month, and everything goes through the process until it comes up to the board for final vote. That's kind of how I view it. Somebody needs to correct me if I'm wrong. I also understood that the emergency services budget at the county has been, I don't know if just going out of control over the last handful of years. And I don't know if that's where this started.
It's up about, I want to say 100% over 5 years, 7 years, 100% over 5 or 7 years. That certainly has something to do with it. But to just take that number and please, correct me if I'm wrong, there's a lot of things in play there, right? To just say it's 100%, right? We've added 1/3, well, actually more than 1/3. We added a 3rd truck, which is 6 people. We added 2 captains, which is 2 more. We built several new stations.
Right,
And-
which I have heard,
and
though, that
revenue-
not all of that
Right.
was necessary.
Revenue is down and costs are up.
I think what everyone has to consider is a big part of everyone else supporting this measure in the other communities is the reality of northern Door County providing sustenance for, let alone a talent pool for some private company to come in with, you know, with employees to do this job is, I mean, it's science fiction, in my opinion, to think that somebody would say that's plausible. You know, we've got, I mean, if you look at, you know, it took us, how long to find a village administrator in Sister Bay? Okay? How
Well, we
long-
could have hired anybody, Rob, we didn't want to do that.
Exactly.
We were waiting
Well, I think we should be at least as picky with the paramedics, though, Denise.
That's exactly my point. You could get a bunch of companies that'll waltz in here, and they'll be willing to hire anybody to start, you know, going down to Tampa Bay and buying themselves a house on the water after destroying, you know, Northern Door County's emergency services for a 5-year contract. I mean, it's, you know,
Well,
in my opinion,
unfortunately,
in my opinion, I think we're very well to support this and support it in the way that everyone else is doing. And,
I agree with Chris that it's a sufficiently bad idea that it's worth going on the record ahead of time. Because to privatize something that really should be a public interest government function, I'm against that. I mean, we should go get the RFQ, but I'm still against it. And I'd have to really have something really change my mind to.
And I'll turn my hat around and where County at and say, understand that the RFQ is simply asking for qualifications. If they have somebody that comes forth with what they determine to be appropriate qualifications, then they have to go through a whole RFP process.
Right.
So there are multiple steps, right? The RFQ is just, hey, are you interested? Tell us about yourself, and we'll determine whether or not we think that you're adequate. And then if we think you're adequate, now we'll sit down and get the vote. So now I'll turn my head back around.
can I say something? Unfortunately, I've had situations where we've relied on ambulances. Both my dad and my mom were very ill. My dad, many, many years ago, had an aneurysm in the Whitefish Bay Creek. At that time, they had to rely on an outside ambulance because the local guys were busy. They only had a few. We were listening to the scanner, and my mom said, oh my God, they don't know where the creek is. If that guy survives, it's a miracle. But we didn't know it was my dad. And, 25 minutes later, they finally got there. My mom was living with my sister, and she was very ill. They had to call the ambulance probably 7 or 8 times. It was really reassuring for us to know that a local person was gonna come and help her. She'd look at them and she'd say, oh my God, my angels are here. You don't have that if there's not that personal connection. And I understand the procedure, but there is a human element to it.
To weigh in on this, I agree there should be a public service. If the costs are getting out of line, there's ways to manage that. That's some committee's job, and that's the board's job. It's not our job right now. We don't control it. I wouldn't want to see this privatized. Some things I'm all
I wouldn't
for.
either. I wonder if the idea of an RFP is to gain better information so that the county can make informed decisions as to continue as.
Yeah, and I don't have a problem with that.
Yeah.
But I also don't have a problem saying I don't care if they do it.
Yeah.
I'm not down on an RFQ idea, but the reality of that is, the thing everyone needs to consider is, most of the time, when you go down that road, you're going down that road because you're in a situation where there's an inherent understanding, there's cost savings, or that there's money to be saved, and there's reasons to examine that. It's not surprising to me, and I think anyone who thinks about costs going up for EMS in the last years, everything we hear about the gentrification of the county, the aging of the county, everyone moving here, the predominant relocators are retirees. The retirees are getting older. I mean, in 2010, We know about the census records of how old the county was. I mean, and, you know, exponentially, those costs are gonna go up because we're treating older and older people that are requiring more and more service. So I think, you know, before somebody, you know, latches on to the idea that, you know, we've gotta do RFQs because there's costs to save, I think you need to consider the fact that costs are going up, they're gonna continue to go up, and in my opinion, that's a big part of what's behind this, because, you know, it's preempting somebody from just saying, hey, well, you know, we're just gonna, you know, look at this strictly on cost. I mean, the reality of this situation is, the costs are going up, and they're gonna go up, because of the age of the people that are going up for servicing.
I'd like to move that we adopt resolution number 405-061819.
I'll second it.
Motion by Bell, second by Kadako. Any further discussion? All those in favor respond with an aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Aye. Motion carried.
Thank you.
No offense, Chris.
No, geez. Look, I understand how you work and how you think, and I
Okay.
appreciate that.
You do? Shed some light.
Good thing I was on the fire board all those years, and he knows that.
Yeah, yeah. I hope your house doesn't start on fire.
I'm gonna have to get out there with my wrench and open up the hydrant myself.
I don't know where that house is.
Run a hose over from the boathouse.
Yeah.
Okay, where are
Oh, you're on.
Yep, I got it.
35.
we? Okay, item number 10, report on county activities from County Supervisor Dave Leno. Last month, I didn't have a report because the board hadn't met yet. I'm happy to report that after the board met last month, the big issue was continuing to fund the transportation system that had been put in place. The county agreed to fund it for the next 3 years. In addition to that, hire a either part-time or full-time transportation manager to evaluate and try and get a better handle on the transportation issues, and potentially design a system differently than current, how it's being delivered, or if that's the best way to deliver it, then figure out how we're gonna pay for it going forward. The county is no different than the village is. We're under levy limits. Costs and pressures continue to rise. Somewhere, somebody has to do less with less. And we keep looking at things. So transportation was one, and what we agreed to do was put a 3-year reserve pool of money aside to allow them to now go out and get a 3-year contract. Just so you know, the door-to-door transportation is a contracted service. That's not delivered by county employees or county service. That's a contracted service that's been in place now for 5 years. The contract is up in January, which is why it came up for discussion as to what we should do. Costs continue to rise, just like everything else. And after we looked at it, we decided that the best thing to do was keep it in place for another 3 years so we could do a harder look at it and decide what, if anything, could be done about it. We're also looking to get other stakeholder groups involved, people that use the service, places that people are delivered to more frequently, getting involved. We're having discussions with the city of Sturgeon Bay, which of course is a large user of the services by residents, as well as Northern Door. So we'll continue to do that. One more step in the process, but I think the big issue is that we're hiring a transportation manager to take a look at what's really going on with it. Any questions? Yeah.
Do you mind if I close the door?
Item number 11, review of the financial statements and consideration of a motion to approve the monthly bills. So what I will do for purpose of discussion is make a motion to approve the bills in $548,019.67, as well as add to that a $20,854 from Green Resources LLC, which Tasha, our great finance director, will explain to us if questioned.
So the Green Resources LLC bill is for the water and sewer laterals for the waterfront park restrooms. That was our cost to do. We just got this bill, which is why you have it now. And it's gonna come out of the TIF, so the funding's in it.
You just got the, it's dated the 24th of April.
Yes, and that's another reason why it's at this meeting. She says she sent it in April. I can't find any record of having received it. So, we told her we would have a check to her by the end of the week, provided that there's board approval.
Okay.
Did you have a second on that?
I'll second.
Okay, couple of questions.
Yep.
What page?
Just a question, first of all, not on a page. Our McClone insurance, all of our liability insurance, and anybody that's been in a committee meeting recently with me knows that I have, while I was sick, I was doing a major reading of all the old municipalities that I hadn't read and found lots of things to talk about and create more work for everybody. But I was wondering, why do we not use the municipality insurance?
That is.
Oh, McClone is?
McClone is
Oh,
the
okay.
league
Okay,
insurance.
it is the league, all right.
Yeah.
And then on page 141, our impact fee refunds, is that for the water tower?
Yep,
Okay,
those are collections from 2006.
so all those people are getting a nice little,
Yep, and then we heard from people who didn't get a check.
Yes. That's what,
We were wondering why.
that's what I've been hearing from.
that's all I had.
Anybody else? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Carried. Report by the village administrator on village activities and projects.
Okay, reports are included in the packets. Does anybody have any questions?
Hold on just a second.
For the utilities committee, just an FYI, I picked out the shingle colors.
Oh, the new restrooms. Any updates, information on that?
Al, do you want to provide an update on the status of the restrooms?
Yeah, we're doing all the rough-ins right now. Those are going to be finished tomorrow, and then roof in next week. Stonework, siding next week, and then inside work probably done in the middle of July, we're thinking, for everything. So we're trying for the July 4th, but it's just taking a little bit longer than we thought, but probably middle of July is looking.
Okay.
Maybe it'll be summer by then.
Yeah, maybe it'll warm up enough to
Maybe
use
it'll
them, right?
warm up, yeah.
To use the beach, this weather is.
Okay. Any questions on Marina report or the facility manager's report? Amy, do you want to add anything from the Marina side?
No.
Okay, we're going to move down to committee reports. We'll save the closed session for last. Admin has not met. Admin comp oversight has not met. Communications technology has not met. Coastal byways.
They were having some website issues. I set them up with Andrew Phillips, who's a Gibraltar graduate who has his own computer contractor business, helps out a lot of businesses in the county, getting their website squared away. That's working out well. I'm working with Miles and apparently Dave Elliott at the Pulse to figure out what's going on as far as why there are no coastal byway brochures making it to any of the paperboy racks. I know at Yacht Club I haven't had one in 4 years, and what came out of the committee is that they started going around in the off-season to year-round open businesses and nobody saw any of them there, then they confirmed that they had them in stock. Apparently, according to Steve Gretzmacher, there's a logarithm that should ensure that every place of business will eventually get their fair share of everybody's brochures, but, so we have to figure out why that's not happening. Miles is gonna help with that. And we're also looking at the media influencer that the SBAA group is using and looking to use as to how they might be able to do some work for the Coastal Byway group in terms of getting people up here and more involved in using that.
Okay. DCECD.
The housing report has been the focus. They made it to last plan commission as well, Jim did. And they're also touching broadband again. But they kind of let that sit for the winter.
Okay. Economic development is not met. Finance.
That's in the packets.
Any questions? Fire.
Meeting tomorrow.
Fire District Exploratory has not met. Historical Society.
You have the May minutes, I believe, in the packet. And we had our June meeting on the 6th. I haven't seen any minutes come out yet touching on it. Getting the property cleaned up. Trivia night brought in $2,241. And rummage sale, another 1,000, so pretty good fundraiser.
Nice. Holiday lighting has not met. Library.
Library's asking for an additional 5,000, 2020 budget. It'll be the first time, I think, since 2014 that they've asked for an increase. The majority of it would go towards staffing so that the library would be open on Thursdays year-round, and that there would be no more closed day on Thursdays.
Do you know if that's a total, the 5,000 is the total amount, or that's the village portion? Out of curiosity.
That's the
It's-
village portion.
Okay.
The village portion would be 3,000 of the 5,000 would go towards that. The town has a similar 3,000 that they're requesting to cover their half of that, and then the other 2 on our end is equivalent to another 2 on the town end, and that's mainly for capital funds that are coming up.
Okay. Marina and Marina Fest.
Minutes in the packet, you've heard a lot more than usual this evening.
Marina Fest, I think we have a meeting next month.
Parks. Minutes should be in there. The only thing I would add is a trip is being made tomorrow to go down and pick up the Freedom Fest fireworks.
All right.
So,
Be careful.
It's not nearly as far this year.
no, it's not. Should be a lot easier. Personnel. Met. Plan Commission. They haven't been doing any much either. So.
Nope.
No.
SBAA.
On target to start the village bus last weekend in June, and first concert's tomorrow.
All right.
Tourism Zone.
Meets on Thursday.
Utilities.
We've covered quite a bit of what we've been talking about tonight.
Ute Center.
Been working on lining up additional parents willing to be chaperones for the coming off-season events that we'll do this winter. And then it's not on here, Dave, but I would just say that ice rink, we had our initial meeting this morning and went very well. We'll reconvene on August 20th.
Excuse me, thank you.
Any other questions or comments on committees, committee
And then
reports?
TIF?
Just to note, there's TIF in the packets as well, but that's not on this list.
No. TIF?
Our big 20-minute meeting?
Yeah, it's very exciting. You should all come next year.
Yes.
Now you get a year off.
Once a year. Yeah.
Okay, prior to closed session, does anybody have anything that they would like to publicly place on a future agenda referred to committee official or employee? With that, consider a motion to convene an executive session pursuant to Wisconsin statutes 19.851G to confer with legal counsel for the governmental body who's rendering oral or written advice concerning strategy to be adopted by the body with respect to litigation in which it is or likely to become involved, Wisconsin statutes 19.851E, to deliberate and negotiate the purchase of public properties, invest in public funds, or conduct other specified public business whenever competitive or bargaining reasons require a closed session, Wisconsin statutes 19.851C, discuss personnel and employee benefits. Motion by Lino.
Second.
Roll call. Lino, yes.
Berto, yes?
Duffy, yes?
Oh, yes.
Kadaco, yes.
Zashki, yes.
Baker, yes?
We're now in closed session. We will take a 5-minute break.